I'm Jim Peck. Welcome to MSU Today in Studio. My guest is Carl Taylor, who's a sociology professor here at MSU. He's a leading expert on youth culture, gangs, and violence. And, Carl, as I say that, I wonder if those three things almost always have to go together these days.
They don't have to, but far too many times they do. One of the problems is that youth culture is always pushing the envelope, it seems. This is a time when young people are kind of spreading their wings. And in recent years, it seems that youth culture has been synonymous with violence, gang violence, individual violence, moving quite fast. So unfortunately, it seems like it's always the case. But we have a lot of kids who are not violent, but there are a lot that are. One of the things that I look at is that it's changed quite a bit. In earlier times when I was a young lad, we would seal ourselves off from those who were being violent. That was part of what my parents, my grandmother, and others taught us, that if someone else is being violent, you head the other way. Unfortunately, today, it seems that those who are nonviolent are not only spectators, but in many ways silent supporters. They won't step up. So that's a big difference, and we're trying to find out what's going on.
Is that kind of the, bad things happen when good people say nothing?
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. But it also is a reflection of the larger society. When we have senators and others who do bad things and none of their peers step up, then young people reflect the larger society also. No one ever wants to talk about that, but that's part of what the problem is.
Well, you talk about senators and the government, and they do a lot of talking about today's youth. Right. They always point it out as one of the problems, one of the challenges, the things that we have to point out in society. Do they do enough to speak to that youth?
Absolutely not. Many times that is not the guys who are voting. And so what they do is a lot of hypocrisy. Now, I'm not saying all politicians, but many do. They just give lip service. And the really bad part of that is young people are very bright, and they look at that. So they see us as being hypocritical, and they don't take us serious, and that you're just running your mouth, and you're not here when I need you. And so that makes it even more complex, more difficult for us.
We certainly see in society doing a terrific job of trying to market to these kids, though. I mean, we're trying to sell them things that it's a desirable demographic. So,
right.
So how are we missing the real messages, not just the sales messages?
The almighty dollar has taken over, and you're absolutely right. That's a great point. I mean, you look at, we sell them cars, we sell the food. Youth culture is now a major target, and so what happens is that kids realize that you just want my money, which is the way it really is. One of the areas that does a great job of connecting to youth culture is advertisers. If we could only attach ourselves to advertisers and change the message a bit, we would do a lot more with young people.
Do you think you can make it cool to be good?
Great question. A really great question. I hope so. I mean, I really do. I think that's important. I think right now that I'm talking to professional athletes, guys out in the streets saying that violence is not cool, and that beating your girlfriend up, or now we have an equal swing the other way, girls beating up boys. The violence is just out of control. There's no question about that. But again, I think that when you have, like unfortunately, we have our guys in the NBA or in the NFL shooting themselves, and I'm not digging at these guys in a personal way, but those are the examples. But also when young people are in homes that are violent, and that's the way the father has taught, that I rule with my fist, or worse, with my gun, then it confuses young people. So also we've seen a tough mom that is not taking the walk down nonviolent lane. Tough moms inspire their children, just like tough dads. But I'm not surprised. My research is very close. We look at why shouldn't young women be violent? When everyone is violent around them, that role of sitting back and take it and don't say anything, that day is long gone. These young women now are stepping up. That's not where we want them to step up. But women are swinging it out here, and my research is just as well as young men.
Is this a Detroit problem, a Michigan problem, a national problem, or is it truly global? I mean, do you see this?
Yeah, it is global. There's no question. A lot of people are feeling very good about framing it as a Detroit problem. And let's be blunt. Many times it's seen as a racial issue, black or brown or whatever. But this is an issue, I would tell you now, look at the middle class. It's a race and issue class. Middle class children or young people who are caught in violence is rising all the time. And then, of course, there's someone who will counter me and say, oh, no, not really. Let me tell you, you did not pay attention when it was, quote, a Detroit problem. It is now not only a suburban, it's rural, it's everywhere. Young people have the capacity to be violent. They're looking at a society that is violent, and they're not buying it. So that is what our problem is. We're not being honest. What we care about, in the general sense, is money. We're getting paid. Our movies, look at the synthetic violence. These kids entertain themselves, and someone will say, whoa, and I would agree, whoa. I have a lot of young men and women who look at video violence, and they don't do violent things. But I have plenty that do, that don't understand that that is not reality, that is a video game. So we do a lot to encourage violence, and we're hypocritical for not taking the stand that we're talking out both sides of our mouth.
Are we also being hypocritical to say, well, you know, I know this is happening over in Detroit, or it's happening in New York, or, you know, South LA. I mean, I don't live there. It doesn't affect me.
Right. Well, interesting. You know, you made that point on another interview with me earlier, and that is very true. And it's tough today, and that's part of the problem, that until it falls right on your doorstep, many, and I also have been guilty of this, that we don't take stock in what is taking place. We're very narrow-minded, it seems, and that's not my problem. Meanwhile, the problem has just grown immensely. And it's almost like it started off as a small problem, and you talked about those kids or these kids, and then suddenly I'm seeing it in attitudes, and that's what I'm talking about. Even when I have kids, I had a young lady stand up in my class the other day from a good, affluent community, and she said, why should I care? You know, she said, why should I care? And she was talking about Haiti and every place else. And everybody in the class was just kind of looking. And then there were those who were in agreement silently. So I addressed that issue. We have a responsibility. Whether or not we take it is another debate, but we do have a responsibility to cease all this madness.
We'll be right back after this.